Hey, this is Dr. David Trumbore from Elite Personal Training and Fitness Solutions here in Huntington Valley, Pennsylvania. And today we are talking about leaky gut syndrome. Now, I make a lot of videos and it would be easy to say this is one of the most important ones about everyone, but then it kind of loses its significance. But this really is one of the most significant videos and the content of it is extremely important, and I'm really excited to bring this video to you today. So, you may have heard a little bit about leaky gut syndrome, or maybe you've never heard it at all. Not very long ago, the medical field didn't really recognize leaky gut syndrome and thought it was some sort of kind of kooky theory. Now, we recognize that it is possible and perhaps even likely that leaky gut is the explanation for many of the things in our body, like chronic inflammation and disease processes, which we call autoimmune diseases, in which we don't know what the cause is. So in the medical field, when you come to see a clinician, we try to diagnose you and say, this is what's wrong and why. When we can't find out why, we have terms. The term is idiopathic. It means we don't know why. You have this rash, we see it, you have it, but we don't know what the cause is. But we have to bill and code it, so we have a word. Idiopathic means we don't know. You have headaches. We don't know what causes them, so we say they're idiopathic. We say you have an autoimmune disease. We don't know what's causing it, but your body has gone berserk and it's attacking yourself, so you have rheumatoid arthritis or some other type of rheumatoid disease. Now, there, of course, is something causing it. Just because we don't know doesn't mean there isn't a cause. We just don't know. And it is likely that leaky gut is now the explanation for many of these idiopathic autoimmune diseases and chronic inflammation. So to understand what leaky gut is, let's first talk about what non-leaky gut is, what normal digestion is. So it works like this. You put food into your mouth, you chew it. That's the first step of digestion. That's called mastication. You chew up your food. You then swallow it. It goes down into your esophagus. From there, it gets dropped off into your stomach. Acids and other things in your stomach begin to digest the food. The food then passes into your small intestine, where nutrition is absorbed, but the waste and toxins are kept intact in the small intestine. It then gets passed into your large colon, where water is absorbed, leaving the toxins and the waste in there, and finally it gets pushed into your rectum, and then you poop out all the toxins, or you pee it out. So if you think about it, this is an amazing system that our body has been created with. It has a system of keeping the crap, literally, in and absorbing the good stuff. And what happens is when the food gets into your colon, there are little tentacles that kind of absorb the water and the nutrition into your body and into your blood system, but there is a protective barrier to keep the undigested food particles and gluten and toxins and waste in so it can be excreted. And the way that barrier works normally is you have cells that are called epithelial cells. They're special cells that allow water and nutrients to be absorbed, but they form a fence or a barrier to keep the bad stuff from leaking in. So picture you have a yard and you have a wooden fence and you have slats like this, and they are adjacent to each other and there's no gaps, and it keeps out stuff from coming into your yard like litter, trash, and animals. That's how these cells are. They form a barrier. But there's something that keeps these cells held together. There's special proteins called tight junction proteins, and these proteins function like glue or clamp, and they keep the cells together by clamping together so there's no space. Good stuff gets absorbed, bad stuff gets passed out. Everything works fine. If something damages these proteins, they lose their clamping or gluing effect, and then the cells that they held together now have gaps in it. So picture that fence analogy. There's now gaps in between where the slats and the boards were, so animals can come in, trash and litter can come in through these gaps. Well, that's exactly what happens in your colon. If there become gaps in the cells, undigested food particles, proteins, gluten, toxics, waste can pass from the colon into the blood system, and you don't need to be a doctor or in the medical field to realize that's a bad thing. Literally, crap and toxin is getting into your body, and then all hell breaks loose. It causes chronic inflammation and most likely a lot of other disease processes that we don't have explanations for. Okay, I want to give you a good visual of what we're talking about here with leaky gut syndrome. So an image is going to be on your screen. You can follow along. So if you're looking at this, at the top of your picture, that is inside your colon. and you can see there's toxins in there, microorganisms, gluten, undigested proteins, food particles, waste. And then the cells that you first see at the top, those orange things with the little finger-like projections, those are your epithelial cells. Those finger-like projections are the things that absorb the nutrition and the water that I was talking about earlier. And then behind that, that red tube, that's your blood vessels with blood cells in there. And if you look to the left, you'll see that the epithelial cells are tight. There's tight junction proteins there. There's no gaps. But as you start moving towards the right, you start seeing spaces and bigger gaps, big enough for the toxins and undigested food particles to actually go into your blood system. And you can see blood cells in your blood vessel, but also this other toxic crap. And then at the bottom, it shows you what kind of things happen with leaky gut. Well, on the left, nutrient malabsorption. You don't absorb nutrients well. You tend to be underweight and sickly. Autoimmune diseases, food intolerances, and sensitivities. In other words, people say, well, I'm gluten intolerant. Well, okay, that's what you are, but something's causing that, and most likely leaky gut is causing that. There's systemic inflammation, and then leading to chronic diseases. So, if you're paying attention, this should be a little bit concerning, and you would think, well, what kind of things would create these gaps? What kind of things would damage the proteins, create a leaky gut, and allow all this sewage to pass into our body to cause all hell to break loose? Well, the things that cause leaky gut syndrome are high levels of body fat at the belly, high sugar diets, high fat diets, diets that consume a lot of processed foods, lack of exercise, nicotine, poor sleep, and possibly alcohol. There's not a lot of solid research on the alcohol, but it's believed to be so because, let's face it, excessive alcohol consumption probably isn't good for many body systems. And the killer is antibiotics. Antibiotics just indiscriminately wipe out bacteria in your stomach, which then destroy the proteins that hold the clamping and gluing function and potentially create leaky gut, especially with chronic antibiotic usage. So, if you had leaky gut, how would you know? What kind of symptoms would you have? Well, there's now 2 tests that are available. One, you drink something and have a urinalysis and see what's in it, and then 6 hours later you remeasure and see what's in it. And symptomatology, you can have a whole variety of things. Leaky gut would give you gastrointestinal problems. You could have gas, bloating, diarrhea, cramps. It causes food intolerance, probably gluten intolerance, food allergies, fatigue, aching, general malaise, which is our medical term for feeling like crap, probably a whole host of other chronic inflammatory and autoimmune diseases. If you say, well, that's me, I don't exercise, I have a crappy diet, I feel like crap, I have these inflammations and these chronic diseases, it's quite possible that you have leaky gut. The good news is, if you think about the things that cause it, I didn't say genetics. That's outside of your control. You can control exercise levels. You can control what you eat. And then there's other supplementation that we use for treatment. Exercise to reduce the belly fat, proper nutrition to begin to heal the gut, probiotics, prebiotics, other supplements which are known to be healing for leaky gut. So this is a treatable condition. It's extremely important to get started right away if you think you have leaky gut. We can help you manage this. So please contact our office, schedule an evaluation, and we can evaluate you and then begin interventions to help heal your leaky gut. And remember, if you won't spend time, energy, and money on wellness, you will soon most likely need to spend more time, energy, and money on illness.